The story takes place inside a virtual reality game, where the sky shines bright blue while the deep woldberry forest spreads across the land, with thick trees and shadows. In the middle of that forest, a wounded player stumbles into a clearing while blood runs down his face and his breathing grows rough. Around him, enemy soldiers dressed in blue and white uniforms slowly tighten their circle while holding sharp swords ready to strike. 3 of his teammates already lie dead on the ground while only 1 survivor is kneeling, trying to hold on. At the center of the enemy group, a woman wearing royal robes sits calmly on a throne, while several high-ranking officers stand proudly beside her like guards protecting a queen. The injured player feels hopeless while blaming himself for the disaster. Behind the woman on the throne, 2 important players stand quietly, and their neat uniforms show they hold authority. One of them grows annoyed and complains that even after all this effort, the person they were waiting for still has not arrived. Meanwhile, the woman sitting on the throne loses patience and quickly gives a cold order to kill the remaining survivors. A massive player wearing a helmet carved with a skull lifts his huge axe high into the air while preparing to deliver the final strike. The survivor grips his spear tightly, while fear and courage fight inside him at the same time. Just as the axe begins to fall, a sudden blur slices through the air. A white-haired player wearing a dark hood rushes forward with incredible speed, while blue energy trails behind him like a streak of lightning. In the same instant, his weapon flashes across the attacker's side, which stops the deadly blow before it lands. The stunned survivors watch as the mysterious fighter lands in front of them, while energy pulses around his body. Someone calls his name with relief and hope. One enemy instantly recognizes him and shouts in panic that the legendary Hyrkan is here. Because of that, the soldiers rush forward together, although fear spreads across their faces. Jaehyun's eyes glow with blue energy while he calmly prepares to fight. In the next second, he moves again, and his blade cuts cleanly through one opponent while blood sprays through the air. Without slowing down, he charges forward while his cloak flies behind him, and 2 more enemies collapse almost instantly. The battlefield becomes quiet as his sword slices through every attack with terrifying ease. Blood stains his cloak and face, however his expression stays calm and emotionless. A small smile forms as he tells them they never had a chance of defeating him. His real name is An Jaehyun, and he belongs to the Haho Mask Guild, yet players across the game know him by another title. They call him Hero Slayer. One surviving teammate lowers his head and apologizes while explaining they never expected such a huge ambush. Jaehyun wipes sweat and blood from his face, while calmly telling him not to worry. He places his sword away and reaches out a hand so the player can stand again. While the rest of the guild gathers around with emotional faces, Jaehyun assures them the blame does not belong to them. However, his attention soon shifts toward the woman standing in the center of the enemy forces. With a sharp voice, he mocks her for always falling behind because of her lack of skill. The woman finally steps forward while smiling coldly. She laughs at their emotional reunion and asks why Jaehyun suddenly acts so sentimental. Her voice grows colder as she says weak players joining forces still remain weak. This woman is Sirei, whose real name is Chae Seo Leon from the Thunder Hunters Guild, and players across the world know her as the Thunder Queen. Jaehyun smirks while reminding her that she always returns to challenge people she once called trash. Sirei becomes furious and warns him to watch his words before he regrets them. However, Jaehyun only grins while activating the glowing device on his wrist. Blue light spreads across his body while streams of data flash across his eyes. Soon, a strange key made of blue code appears in his hand, while golden black armor forms around him piece by piece. A glowing mask slides over his face beneath the hood, and he stands fully transformed into a warrior created by the game system. Sirei screams for her team to attack, yet Jaehyun laughs while teasing them for never learning their lesson. However, before he can say anything more, blood suddenly bursts from his side. His confident expression disappears instantly as pain spreads through his body. Slowly, he looks down and realizes the blade came from behind. The one who stabbed him is his own teammate. The survivors he saved now stand quietly with dark, empty eyes. Red warnings flood his screen while his health drops rapidly and the system locks his body in place. He collapses to the ground while desperately trying to understand what happened. The betrayer approaches with a sad face and asks for forgiveness while explaining they had no choice. He excuses that he had to do this to make a living. Siri bursts into loud laughter while mocking his belief in friendship. She kneels beside him and calmly explains that money rules everything. The two then go back and forth for a bit with Jaehyun trying to get to Siri. However, more blades suddenly pierce Jaehyun's body as several teammates stab him together. His vision fades, and the system message appears. He has died and the penalty blocks his account for 48 hours. Back in the real world, Jaehyun wakes inside his gaming capsule while gasping for air. Shock and betrayal crush his heart because everything he built inside Warlord is now gone. Consumed by anger, he runs into the city searching for revenge. However, fate moves faster than him. A speeding truck crashes into him while darkness begins swallowing his vision. Just as everything fades, a strange bright light appears and a system interface opens before his eyes. A message flashes across the screen. "Welcome, Hyrkan." When Jaehyun opens his eyes again, he finds himself inside a strange battlefield where a gigantic minotaur roars with glowing red eyes. Confused players shout for teamwork, while fear spreads among them. Yet Jaehyun calmly grabs a sword and walks forward alone. The monster charges with heavy steps that shake the ground. However, Jaehyun remains calm, and in one swift motion his blade flashes across the air, while carving a glowing X through the creature's body. Blood bursts outward as the Minotaur collapses instantly. The stunned players stare in disbelief, while one asks with a smirk if Jaehyun wants to join their guild. That single question brings back a painful memory. Jaehyun's eyes grow cold while his blade flashes again, and blood sprays through the air. Standing there silently, Jaehyun accepts the truth that now guides his heart. He will never trust anyone again. At the same time, the system shows that the legend of the hero slayer has returned. After a long, brutal logout from the game, Jaehyun's eyes snapped open as he pushed himself upright in the capsule, still catching his breath. He lifted the visor and stepped out slowly, only to freeze, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The space was alive with movement rows of V-Gear pods, people laughing, chatting, and testing demo machines. Everything felt strangely familiar, almost like stepping into a memory, and for a moment, he couldn't believe it. Then it hit him. This was the same V-Gear showroom he had visited 5 years ago when money was tight and he could only dream of owning proper gaming gear. Back then, he had wandered in just to try the demos, but now the memory burned in him like a warning, and a cold sweat rolled down his cheek as he realized he might really be here, in the past. Without wasting a second, he ripped off the gear and bolted through the crowd. People stared, but he didn't slow down, weaving with purpose while his mind replayed 5 years of memories. He knew exactly what he had to do this time. Reaching the front counter, he slammed his card down, startling the receptionist as he demanded the base V-Gear model. His breathing was heavy, but his voice was steady, calm, and focused. The receptionist blinked at him for a moment, then smiled, telling him she would get it ready right away. Meanwhile, Jaehyun's thoughts raced, plotting his next moves and whispering strategies to himself. Then reality hit him like a brick. The receptionist checked the terminal and gently informed him that there weren't enough funds on his card. Jaehyun froze, completely blank, his plan momentarily crumbling. That had been the problem all along. Money had always limited him, which was why he had relied on demo units back then. Grabbing his head in frustration, panic threatened to overwhelm him, because earning money would take precious time he didn't have. Every second counted, and if he delayed even a little, he risked falling behind. Suddenly, a strong voice cut through the noise around him, sharp and commanding, demanding he stop wasting time. Jaehyun turned toward the display screen and froze as he recognized the face. Seer, the Thunder Queen herself, #1 in Warlord, appeared with a confident smile, her voice smooth as she spoke about strength, challenges, and the power of the elite. For everyone else, her speech might have inspired ambition, but for Jaehyun it felt like a knife twisting in old wounds. This was the woman who had defeated him, who had turned his buddies against him when he trusted them, who had led the ambush that had ruined everything. Memories crashed back in vivid color, making him pause for just a moment before the fire in his chest forced him into motion. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to act. Evening colors spread across the sky as he left the store, his apartment building coming into view soon after. A sleek V-Gear capsule was delivered that same day and installed in his room. Jaehyun didn't say a word, only nodding as he held a yellow access card tightly in one hand and a flyer for a same-day loan service in the other. He remembered earlier that day sitting across from a sharply dressed agent who had agreed to lend him 10 million, only to stab the flyer with a knife and warn him of lifelong consequences if he failed to repay. Sweat ran down his face as stress pressed in from all sides, but he let frustration harden into resolve. Slowly, he picked up the helmet and slid it over his head as the system started connecting. Blue light washed over him, and memories of betrayal surged back, the fake smiles, the lies, the blades in his back. He clenched his teeth and yelled with all the rage and determination he could summon for the system to connect. Almost instantly, the system responded, calling him by his username, Hyrkan. The virtual world loaded, revealing a massive city glowing under neon light, and Jae-yeon whispered to himself that it had been a long time. A system message confirmed the tutorial completion, signaling the start of his second chance. Golden light suddenly lit the sky as a radiant woman floated down gracefully. Ariadne introduced herself calmly, explaining she would guide him to pick a beginner class. Streams of magical energy swirled around him as the system displayed 3 options. Warrior appeared first, a strong, direct fighter meant for action-heavy play, but Jae-yeon remembered how limited it had become solo, so he rejected it. Next came Cleric, a supportive healer, which he refused immediately since helping others was not his goal. Only one path remained. The system teleported him to a glowing training hall, where a robed man, Golko, greeted him and offered guidance in magic. Jae-yeon didn't hesitate. He chose dark magic. Golko froze, warning that such power could corrupt the soul, but Jae-yeon repeated his choice calmly, insisting that this strength was exactly what he needed. Suddenly, Golko's body twisted, his face cracking open to reveal a skull beneath. Shadow energy spiraled around him, and the friendly guide transformed into a skeletal dark mage. The dark mage laughed and instructed Jae-yeon to place his hand on the cursed book in front of him. Without hesitation, Jae-yeon slammed his hand down, causing dark energy to erupt instantly. A system message confirmed, class acquired, Necromancer. His first skill, Bone Shard, activated in his palm, and when he hurled it to the floor, blue flames and mana exploded outward, raising Bones into a skeleton warrior who bowed respectfully. Jae-yeon smiled faintly, satisfied, but then the skeleton suddenly lifted its own head and dropped it to the floor, leaving Jae-yeon frozen in disbelief. He muttered quietly to himself, baffled by the strange beginning of his second life, yet his eyes burned with determination. At that moment, the entrance to the training dungeon finally appeared, just like Jae-yeon had been waiting for. A spinning blue portal formed before him, crackling with electricity as sparks danced across the floor. Without thinking twice, he stepped forward and into the swirling light, letting the glow swallow him completely. When he exited on the other side, he took a steady breath, ready to start. A system message flashed, confirming he had entered the beginner training dungeon, but something felt off. It wasn't the calm, clumsy training hall he remembered from his last life. Frowning, he muttered to himself and pulled up his skill window to check his Bone Shard ability. The interface showed his skill at the lowest rank F, and confirmed he could summon only one skeleton warrior. A note explained that magic had to be infused into a bone fragment to create a controllable helper. Jae-yeon realized that the skeleton's weird behavior before had been caused by his low proficiency, and now he knew he had to level up fast. Suddenly, a growl echoed nearby, making him whip his head around. A pack of black wolves burst down the corridor, red eyes glowing and teeth bared. The system identified them as coal wolves, low-level training monsters. Jae-yeon smirked, remembering they weren't too strong, but their speed made them perfect practice. He raised his hand, calling out the skill, and a blue skull-shaped energy blast shot forward, signaling his skeleton to engage. The warrior's eyes flared with blue fire as it crouched into a stance, charging at the wolves. For a moment, the pack hesitated, as if bones themselves demanded respect, and then the battle erupted. Jae-yeon watched from a safe distance, impressed at how well the skeleton handled itself, thinking this could finally help him climb levels quickly. Then disaster hit. A loud crash echoed, and the skeleton exploded into pieces, bones scattering across the floor. Its skull rolled to Jae-yeon's foot, glowing dimly and looking almost dazed, like it understood failure. He froze, mouth open in disbelief, clutching his head as lightning crackled behind him. Frantically, he reopened the skill window and discovered 3 behavior modes: defense, attack, and special action that he had never assigned. Smacking his forehead, he realized the mistake and quickly switched the skeleton to defense mode. The eyes flared, but it was too late. The wolves had turned the bones into chew toys, gnawing and tossing them as Jae-yeon stood frozen, trembling, muttering that this was complete disaster. Desperate, he nervously activated special action for a second skeleton, which immediately began a wild, ridiculous dance. The wolves froze, utterly confused, while Jae-yeon's tears slid down his cheeks. Just then, the dark mage NPC from earlier appeared, glowing yellow eyes and a smug grin, pointing at him and laughing. "This is what happens when you ignore instructions," he said. Overwhelmed, Jaehyun dropped to his knees, muttering that he might go insane. Then the system flashed another message: he couldn't delete his character, and new accounts under 3 months couldn't reset. With loan payments looming, he groaned sarcastically, thinking maybe getting hit by a car would have been easier than this nightmare. Still clutching his head, Jaehyun muttered that nothing in his life ever went smoothly. Just when hope peeked through, everything collapsed. He looked at his skeleton still flailing around and swore under his breath, annoyed at how useless the bone figure was. Frustrated, he yelled at it to stop moving and stand still, but as he took a deep breath, he felt something off. He paused and scrolled carefully through his skill details, reading every line this time. And one fact finally clicked: the summoned skeleton had a deep learning system and could actually improve by watching battles. Shock spread through him as he realized the wild skeleton had been learning from his moves all along. A small grin spread across his face as he imagined it copying him like a student learning from a skilled teacher. With newfound focus, Jaehyun called the skeleton over and handed it the wooden club. Its blue eyes glowed as it gripped the weapon more carefully, standing taller. He spoke with confidence, reminding it that it was lucky to have him as a master, and he mentioned his past reputation as a genius who had trained an entire guild to the top. Then he laid down the most important rule: dodge or die. To drive the point home, he punched the skeleton, sending it flying. Over and over, he repeated the training, each hit forcing it to get up again, its bones rattling but its grip tightening, ready for more. He didn't go easy, throwing it hard against the ground while shouting lessons about thinking after dodging and attacking at the right moment. The skeleton slowly began to respond, its stance steady, glowing eyes sharp, lines of determination tracing behind it like it was learning fast. Just then, 2 coal wolves charged straight at the skeleton, red eyes gleaming and teeth bared, snarling with anger. The skeleton didn't flinch. It braced itself, club held tight and swung. First it hit one wolf mid-leap, shockwaves rippling through the air, then twisted to slam the second down with precision. When the dust settled, it stood tall, golden light flickering behind its skull, and sparkles floating above. Jaehyun immediately yelled, annoyed, reminding it not to get distracted. Still, he allowed a small smile as he acknowledged the skeleton's progress, and soon messages appeared confirming its skill level was rising. Jaehyun stood confident, skeleton looking up with admiration, both glowing with energy as they leveled together. The scene shifted to Beginner Village, Figus Castle, bright and busy with a large fountain and bustling stalls. Players and NPCs moved around, shouting for raids and guilds, but Jaehyun walked past, thinking the skeleton had been worth the hard training and could probably handle the dungeon alone soon. His thoughts shifted to leveling up, knowing the real journey was just beginning. Before he could act, a big man grabbed his shoulder, demanding an apology, with a smaller guy egging him on. Jaehyun barely flinched, judging them as low-level bullies, annoyed by the interruption. The big man got angrier, raising his fist, but a tall man in a flashy red shirt with sunglasses stepped in, effortlessly stopping the punch. Calm and casual, he reminded them that anger didn't justify violence. The thugs stared confused, asking if he was with Jaehyun, but he shook his head. Jaehyun stood stunned, sweat forming on his face. Realizing this stranger wasn't just any player, something about him was definitely unusual. Jaehyun's eyes dropped to the man standing in front of him, and he couldn't help staring at that ridiculous, massive arm poking out of a bright floral shirt. The muscles were insane, so defined and big, it almost didn't look real. He noticed the whole vibe too, the red Hawaiian shirt, sunglasses shoved up on the head, and that chill, carefree smile. For a second, he thought it looked like someone cosplaying Thomas Andre on vacation, but he quickly shook it off and focused on the moment. Then it hit him, he knew who this was. Matador Shev, the legendary warrior from his past life, top-ranked, feared across the game. Shock froze him in place, and for a moment, he couldn't process why someone like Matador was here, in a town like this. The thug in front of him tensed, stepping back nervously, while the big thug tried to act tough. He said that Matador should mind his business, claiming Jaehyun bumped into him first. Matador, still calm, just chuckled, wiping sweat and scratching his head before casually quoting an old saying about returning a hit. Then everything changed, the air grew heavy, as red energy burst from Matador like flames, heat and pressure rolling over them. Jaehyun shielded his eyes, feeling the force deep in his bones, clenching his teeth to stay upright. The thug froze, eyes wide, drenched in panic. Matador's smirk widened, and he reminded the thug that after a punch to the palm, a return hit was fair, his hand glowing dangerously. The tension spiked, and the thugs didn't even wait yelling apologies. They ran for their lives, leaving Matador chuckling softly in the quiet that followed. Matador then turned to Jaehyun, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder, asking if he was okay, trying to ease the tension with a smile. But Jaehyun immediately shrugged him off and said firmly he didn't need help, walking away without looking back. Matador's smile faded, showing a hint of disappointment as he watched Jaehyun disappear into the crowd. Inside, Jaehyun's jaw tightened, anger simmering as he remembered how scared he'd been of Matador's power. His hand had trembled earlier, betraying him, and now his fingers clenched into a fist. A promise formed inside him. Next time he met Matador, he'd be a different person, stronger, unshakable. The scene shifted to a dark dungeon, torches flickering against cracked stone walls, shadows dancing ominously. Jaehyun sat quietly, lost in thought, realizing just how far he was from fighters like Matador and comparing him to Sire, knowing revenge required extreme strength. Suddenly, a massive coal tiger with glowing red eyes lunged at him, roaring, ready to crush. Jaehyun stayed crouched, calm as if the monster didn't matter, and then his skeleton warrior appeared, glowing with electric energy. It leapt, plunging its blade into the beast's chest, sending a wave of blue energy blasting outward. The tiger was pushed back, defeated, as system messages confirmed it had been hunted and that the skeleton had leveled up. Exhausted, Jaehyun watched the skeleton stand proudly, weapon in hand, though it slouched slightly, disappointed from lack of praise. For 3 days, he had trained to finally hit level 10, longer than expected. Under a golden light, blue messages appeared, the beginner symbol removed, monsters cleared, rewards sent. Clenching his fist, Jaehyun whispered to himself, proud and satisfied, before glancing at the device on his wrist, the War Watch. The system popped up a message, explaining it handled stats, quests, maps, inventory, and messages, and for a second, Jaehyun felt this nostalgic joy he hadn't felt in ages. Quietly, he told it to open the status window, and a glowing panel appeared, showing his new stats, level 10, class Necromancer, and in-game name Hyrkan. Strength and stamina sat at 3, intelligence and mana at 5. He nodded, noticing all his stats had reset, just like he expected. Then another system message flashed, asking him to assign his available stat points. He stared at the screen, thinking hard, knowing this first choice mattered. Most necromancers would boost mana or intelligence, but Jaehyun wasn't about to play safe. With a sly grin, he dumped all points into strength instead, golden light surrounding him as the transfer happened. His posture straightened, radiating new power, and a system message confirmed his strength had jumped 50 points, now totaling 53. The skeleton warrior nearby froze, eyes wide, then slumped into a corner, covering its face with bony hands like it couldn't believe what just happened. Jaehyun tilted his head, confused, then lightly tapped it on the skull, explaining he hadn't given up on necromancy. He told it raising mana or intelligence now wouldn't matter. Strength meant transferring all his peak skills, risking everything for its growth. The skeleton blinked, overwhelmed, then sparkles of light glimmered around it as it clung to him. Feeling awkward, he told it to focus on training and moved on toward Figus Castle's Raiders Association. Inside, the guild buzzed with activity players arguing over quests, someone proudly holding up a new card. Jaehyun walked to the counter and asked to see the quests, the clerk warning most were tough and avoided. Jaehyun studied them, unimpressed, then finally smirked and picked one confidently, clearing all monsters near Bima Mountain for 10 gold coins. The older worker frowned, calling it a weak quest, but Jaehyun simply nodded. Moments later, the system confirmed the quest, and a new purple screen appeared, showing the Rising Star title. Unlike normal titles, it boosted all stats by a percentage, promising massive growth. Jaehyun grinned, imagining the power and thinking this was just the first step toward becoming unstoppable. Outside, he strolled through town with a confident smile, planning to gather equipment before starting the quest. Soon, he reached Bima Mountain, ancient ruins looming, face serious and ready. Then he noticed his outfit, a ridiculous costume with floppy ears, heart patterns, and clawed feet. Birds screamed, one landing on his head, another underfoot, mocking him. Frustrated, he grabbed his head, cursing his low funds that forced him to buy this ridiculous thing after spending most on the Dark Mage NPC. Gritting his teeth, he charged into the forest, determined to finish the quest fast and gear up. He ran full speed through trees, chasing the glowing light ahead, while the forest elsewhere was eerily quiet. Suddenly, the peace shattered as a blood-soaked hand burst from the bushes, a man barely alive crawling out, crying weakly for help. Just as quickly, something unseen dragged him back, leaving a bloody trail behind. Deep in Bhima Forest, the sunlight slipped gently through tall trees, while tiny glowing data particles floated down from above. The place felt calm and quiet for a moment. However, that peaceful mood suddenly broke when a loud, cheerful voice shouted with excitement. A man wearing shiny silver armor stood proudly in an open clearing while the sun glowed behind him. His name was Multi. With both hands resting on his hips, he happily announced that his adventure at Bhima Mountain was finally starting today. Meanwhile, Multi smirked to himself while thinking about how he had already reached level 11. Because of that, he started wondering if maybe he was naturally talented at gaming. Soon he chuckled and imagined himself becoming a famous top player one day. However, just as he enjoyed that proud moment, a sudden scream echoed nearby, and someone desperately called for help. Instantly, Multi turned his head and saw a long-haired man wearing a hood. The man was kneeling beside a friend who was badly injured and bleeding heavily. The hooded man shouted again while begging anyone around to save his friend. Multi quickly ran over and asked what had happened. Then the man explained that a terrifying monster had attacked them and they barely managed to escape alive. Unfortunately, they had no healing potions left, so his friend would not survive much longer. Because Multi felt sorry for them, he said he had some potions and told them to wait while he opened his menu using his watch. At that moment, the hooded man thanked him again with teary eyes and promised they would repay his kindness later. However, right as those grateful words faded, a huge shadow suddenly rose behind Multi. A massive, muscular man with glowing red eyes stepped forward silently and swung a giant spiked club toward Multi's head. The impact landed instantly, and blood burst out as the weapon smashed down. Multi collapsed to the ground with his body broken while coughing in confusion. Then the long-haired man looked down at him with cold eyes and repeated his thanks again, although this time a cruel smile appeared on his face. Slowly, he bowed his head and revealed the truth that everything had been a trap from the start. Multi weakly muttered that they tricked him and called them cowards. However, the long-haired man only laughed while leaning closer and telling him he was foolish for trusting strangers so easily. Then, with a golden dagger in his blood-covered hand, he stabbed Multi one final time. Immediately, a system message appeared announcing that Multi had died. His body dissolved into glowing particles while his gear dropped onto the ground. Another message followed which confirmed that his watch had also dropped. The group laughed loudly. One man joked about how fun it was to fool beginners, while another mocked Multi's shocked face. Finally, the long-haired man grinned at his teammates and said it was time to hunt their next victim. These killers were known as the Ralph family. Meanwhile, deeper in the forest, two red-eyed wolves circled a skeleton warrior. This skeleton belonged to Jae-yun. Hidden among the shadows, he calmly gave commands. The wolves lunged, yet the skeleton dashed forward with glowing blue eyes. Within seconds, both monsters fell. However, just then, an arrow shot from the trees and struck the skeleton's head. Soon, a tall figure stepped out, followed by three familiar men. It was the same gang that killed Multi. The long-haired man stepped forward again and bowed slightly while showing a regretful face. He apologized politely as if the whole thing was a simple mistake. Jae-yun replied that it was fine, yet his expression stayed cold and empty. Meanwhile, the man noticed that Jae-yun did not really look relaxed. As the stranger moved his arm, Jae-yun quickly spotted something important. There was a blood-stained watch on the man's wrist, and a mana potion tucked inside his pocket. Because of that detail, Jae-yun's eyes narrowed a little. He quietly studied the group while comparing their behavior with the PK gangs he had seen in the past. For a moment, he simply stared at them with silent annoyance, because this kind of trick felt very familiar. Still, he forced a laugh and smiled lightly. Then he said he could forgive the arrow shot if they gave him a mana potion as compensation. Beside him, the skeleton stood stiffly while holding the broken arrow it had pulled from its head. It clearly looked irritated by the situation. The long-haired man raised his hands quickly and claimed they had no potions either. Then he suggested something else. He explained that Jae-yun would recover mana after leveling up, so maybe they could help him gain a level instead. While the three strangers pretended to be friendly, Jae-yun and his skeleton stayed alert. Jae-yun calmly asked if that idea would work. The long-haired man nodded and said it was only fair since they were the ones who made the mistake. Yet at that exact moment, a low growl echoed through the forest, which made the air tense. Soon monsters stepped out from the trees. The long-haired man smiled slightly and said the timing was perfect. The group gathered together and began watching the monsters carefully while whispering to each other. The bearded man then told Jae-hyun that they would weaken the monsters first, so he only needed to deliver the final blow. Jae-hyun agreed in a hesitant tone while continuing to act along with their plan. Meanwhile, the long-haired man leaned toward the hooded man and quietly asked if he remembered the strategy. The hooded man smirked and confirmed that everything was ready. Soon the plan started. The bearded man rushed forward to draw the monsters closer. At the same time, the hooded man prepared a spell with a sly smile. Dark energy formed around his hands as he muttered that he would give the monsters an attack boost. After casting the spell, he secretly pushed one enhanced monster toward Jae-hyun while pretending it slipped by accident. The creature growled loudly and charged straight at Jae-hyun and the skeleton. Jae-hyun instantly threw up his hands and shouted dramatically as if he were frightened. The three PK players watched with smug smiles because they believed their trap had worked perfectly. However, their smiles slowly disappeared. Their eyes widened with confusion when the monster suddenly collapsed. Jae-hyun stood calmly beside his skeleton while placing one hand on his hip. He casually commented that the situation almost turned dangerous. Then he scolded the skeleton for reacting too slowly. The skeleton let out an awkward groan while feeling embarrassed by the criticism. Meanwhile, the PK group felt uneasy. The long-haired man began sweating as he realized Jae-hyun might be far stronger than expected. Because of that suspicion, they decided to test him again by sending several monsters at once. As chaos erupted, the muscular PK player rushed from behind and swung his mace toward Jae-hyun. Yet Jae-hyun rolled smoothly under the strike and instantly countered. His sword flashed once and the attacker fell. The remaining two froze in shock. Jae-hyun calmly signaled his skeleton forward. Together they dashed ahead and finished both enemies in one swift attack. Blood scattered across the ground while silence returned to the forest. Jae-hyun coldly admitted he had only pretended to fall for their trick. Then he raised his glowing sword once more and ended the wounded leader. Moments later, system messages appeared announcing their deaths and the loot they left behind. Jae-hyun gently placed his glowing hand against the side of the skeleton's head. A soft blue light slowly spread from his palm and flowed into the cracked bones that the arrow had damaged earlier. Gradually, the light repaired every small fracture until the skull looked whole again. When the glow faded, Jae-hyun pulled his hand away. However, a faint trace of magic still shimmered around the skeleton's head while the creature quietly absorbed the last bit of healing energy. Once the skeleton felt fully restored, it suddenly straightened its posture and struck a proud pose. Then it lifted its sword high while showing off the new gear it had chosen from the loot they collected. Jae-hyun watched in amusement because the skeleton almost seemed to shine with happiness. Its excitement even looked like a blush spreading across its bony face. Smiling teasingly, Jae-hyun asked if it truly liked the outfit that much. After that, he calmly closed his eyes and spoke with a relaxed tone. He explained that appearance never really mattered in gaming. Instead, what truly counted was skill, effort, and heart. In his mind, he compared that idea with the PK gang members who preferred bullying weaker players instead of fighting honestly. Standing proudly, he placed one hand on his hip while the other rested on his sword. Then he added that what mattered most was what existed inside a player rather than the clothes they wore. The coat he now wore once belonged to the long-haired PK member. Meanwhile, the skeleton simply stared at him in silence because it could not understand why Jae-hyun's dramatic pose almost looked like he was dancing like a duck. Jae-hyun then clenched his fist happily and explained that the war watches taken from the enemies were an incredible discovery. The skeleton listened with glowing blue eyes, although it still looked slightly confused. Jae-hyun continued by explaining that selling another player's watch would drop one random item from their inventory, and sometimes that item could be extremely rare. From those watches, he gained 3 valuable rewards. First, there were black goblin pants that boosted mana and intelligence. Next came a sword forged from ancient tree essence, which also increased mana. Finally, he received a rare skill book called Demon's Curse. Because of that luck, Jae-hyun raised both arms in excitement, while golden coins sparkled around him. Laughing loudly, he shouted that this was a real jackpot. Still smiling, he held a glowing blue shard and said that now he could craft something he had wanted for a long time. As he focused his energy, the shard slowly changed shape. Soon, a golden brown mask with curved eyes appeared in his hands. The mask looked almost identical to the one he owned in his previous life. For a moment, he quietly said that he planned to start recording his gameplay and therefore needed a strong identity. However, his smile slowly faded. Memories returned about the guild he once formed and the mask that symbolized their unity. When the mask began glowing again with blue flames, Jae-hyun tightened his grip. He promised himself that nobody would ever steal his name or his identity again. With that determination, he called for the skeleton and rushed toward a massive dungeon gate. Soon they entered the Bima mountain cave. Inside the dark cave, they searched for hours, yet no monsters appeared. Surrounded only by strange, glowing flowers, Jae-hyun finally threw his arms up and shouted in frustration. But then something clicked in Jae-hyun's mind, and his expression changed right away. His eyes sharpened as a sudden realization hit him, so he hurried toward a dungeon wall, where a strange purple glow leaked through the cracks. He reached out and touched the surface and instantly felt that something was not normal. While he muttered quietly and tried to understand the situation, the wall suddenly burst with power. Shadows mixed with bright electricity, while a spinning vortex formed before them. Jae-hyun and the skeleton stepped back and watched the strange energy twist and rise like a living storm there. A system message appeared and announced that an instant dungeon called The Stage had been discovered. At that moment, Jae-hyun dropped to the ground with a long sigh, because he finally understood why the normal dungeon had been empty. The instant dungeon had replaced everything. These rare places were far more dangerous, yet the rewards were much better. Still, there was a harsh rule. If he entered, he had to clear it completely or die trying. He stood up thinking carefully. At first, leaving sounded smarter since dying meant 2 days without playing. However, determination slowly returned to his eyes. Without another word, he stepped toward the purple vortex, while the skeleton followed close behind. Bright energy surrounded them, and in a flash, they arrived inside a massive ruined coliseum. The arena felt huge, silent, and strangely heavy, which made the air seem dangerous. Jae-hyun looked around and guessed it was some kind of ancient battle arena. The skeleton stayed near him with wide, glowing eyes, clearly nervous. Soon, a dark presence filled the space, and a gigantic werewolf walked from the shadows. Its red eyes burned with anger while sharp teeth showed as it released a terrifying roar there. Jae-hyun barely had time to think before the corrupted werewolf rushed forward with explosive speed. The beast slammed into him and sent his body flying across the arena. The skeleton froze in shock while dust spread through the air. Jae-hyun crashed hard into a stone wall, leaving a deep mark. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then a low laugh escaped from him. Even while stuck in the cracked wall, he sounded amused. He pushed off the stone, landed back down, and realized that corrupted monsters were tied to the main storyline quest, which meant incredible luck had appeared again. Pulling himself upright, Jae-hyun told the skeleton they had to kill the monster now. A wild smile appeared under his mask and his red eyes glowed with excitement. He warned jokingly that if they failed, there would be no dinner tonight. Then he rushed forward while the werewolf crouched with claws ready. The skeleton steadied itself and Jae-hyun used its sword like a step to leap higher. From the air, he cast Inflict Curse and dark energy wrapped his blade. When he shouted Demon's Curse, the strike crashed down and the battle truly began with blazing cursed power around them. The system explained that Slot-On was a special power that only Warlord players could use. Once the skill was activated, the player could draw temporary power straight from the world of the game. Because of that energy, the player's body would change into a much stronger form. Speed, strength, and fighting ability all increased at once, which made the player far more dangerous in battle. The system also mentioned that every warlord's transformation looked different. Each player had a unique form that matched their own style. Right now, Jae-hyun's body was surrounded by bright blue flames that moved like living fire. Because the transformation looked so wild, most players simply called it Rampage Mode. Jae-hyun stood there calmly while the glowing aura burned around him. Then he lifted his hand slowly and smiled with quiet confidence. In a steady voice, he said he was ready to fight. Right after that, the corrupted werewolf answered with a furious roar. Its mouth opened wide while its red eyes burned with rage. Without waiting another second, the beast rushed forward at full speed while stretching its long claws out in front. When it got close, the werewolf swung its claws in a brutal arc that smashed into the ground. The impact shook the arena while dust exploded everywhere. The monster kept roaring while it dragged its claws across the stone in another violent strike. However, Jae-hyun moved faster than expected. He slipped away from the attack and landed smoothly a short distance away. As he crouched low, one hand touched the ground while his cloak flowed behind him. His eyes stayed locked on the enemy. A moment later, the werewolf crashed down again with terrifying force. broken stone flew through the air, yet Jaehyun leaped aside once more before the strike could hit him. When he landed, he studied the situation carefully. He understood right away that this was not an ordinary monster. Since it was a boss creature, its strength and speed were far beyond normal enemies. He quietly reminded himself that if he took 3 or 4 hits, the fight would probably end. Still, the corrupted werewolf refused to slow down. It charged again while growling loudly and showing rows of sharp fangs. Its claws slashed through the air with deadly power. Yet instead of fear, Jaehyun showed a confident smile. At the perfect moment, he dashed forward and cut straight through the monster during its attack. His sword shone with blue energy while the blade sliced across the beast's body. The werewolf screamed in pain and staggered backward as blood spilled onto the arena floor. Jaehyun landed lightly and stood firm while his cloak snapped behind him. The thrill of the fight made his heartbeat rise with excitement. However, his eyes suddenly widened because he sensed another strike coming. Once again, the werewolf smashed its claws into the ground. By then, Jaehyun had already jumped high into the air, which let the attack miss completely. The beast grew angrier with every failed hit. Its furious blows shattered the stone floor and shook the entire arena. When Jaehyun landed safely across the field, he laughed quietly and brushed a hand through his hair. He realized this must be the monster's enraged mode, which he had almost forgotten. Even so, he stayed calm while gripping his weapon tighter. While floating briefly in the air, he turned toward his skeleton companion and asked if it remembered the plan. At that moment, the skeleton appeared above the battlefield, surrounded by a dark aura. Its glowing eyes focused on the werewolf. The beast looked confused, yet the skeleton attacked without hesitation. It dived down quickly and forced the werewolf to defend. Using that chance, Jaehyun slipped behind the monster. Then he told the skeleton to perform the move they had practiced together. The werewolf suddenly understood the teamwork, yet it was already too late. Both fighters dashed forward in perfect sync and struck the blind spot together. Their blades cut through the beast at the same instant, and the monster collapsed as blood burst into the air. Soon, the system confirmed the hunt while rewards began appearing. Right after that, another system message appeared, and it showed that 3 new titles had been registered under Jaehyun's name. He looked up with surprise while glowing blue title cards slowly floated down in front of him. The first card read Rising Star, and it gave a 3% boost to intelligence and magic. As soon as he saw that reward, a satisfied smile appeared on his face, because this was exactly what he had been hoping to get. Soon the second title appeared. This one read Challenger of Heroes, and it increased his stamina by 3%. Jaehyun quickly realized what it meant. This title belonged to the Hero series. Since he had cleared the entire dungeon by himself, the reward made perfect sense. However, a third title soon followed, and the moment it appeared, his expression froze. The final card showed the words, Corrupted Tracker. Jaehyun stared at the glowing text in shock because he could hardly believe what he was seeing. Slowly, he repeated the name under his breath. As the words left his mouth, the meaning suddenly became clear. This title was the starting point of the main storyline quest called Corrupt Count. At once, memories rushed through his mind. He remembered terrifying demon dragons along with mysterious characters tied to that storyline. Jaehyun knew this quest was the very heart of the Warlord world. It was the main backbone of the game, and it offered rewards far beyond anything normal players could imagine. Because of that, every serious player dreamed about joining this storyline. Thinking about it made him emotional. In his past life, he had only reached the 4th chapter. Yet now, in this new life, he had already unlocked the beginning. The thought felt unreal. It seemed far too perfect to be simple luck. With excitement filling his chest, he grinned widely and shouted that this was a true jackpot. Right after that, he gave the command to log out. The screen slowly faded to black and the scene moved to the real world. Outside his apartment, the sky glowed with the soft colors of sunset, while golden light covered the building. At the same time, a live news broadcast played on the television. The reporter explained that the Hydra Guild had already reached the final chapter of the Corrupt Count quest. They were planning to finish the storyline within 3 months. Hearing this news hit Jaehyun like a heavy blow. He sat frozen in front of his computer, with a mouse in one hand and a cup in the other. His face looked empty while his hands trembled. Tears slowly rolled down his cheeks. Even a little coffee slipped from his mouth as he whispered bitterly that calling this a jackpot now felt wrong. The joy he felt moments ago disappeared, and panic quickly replaced it. In frustration, he slammed his forehead onto the desk with a loud thud. His thoughts raced everywhere. If another group finished the quest first, then there might be nothing left for him. Anger boiled inside him and he slammed his cup down while cursing quietly. For a moment, he wondered if he should simply give up and wait for the next big update. A deep sigh escaped his lips, yet suddenly his eyes opened wide. A new thought appeared. Maybe this was not the end at all. Instead, this could be the perfect chance. Everyone was focused on the corrupt Count quest right now. That meant attention was at its highest point. Then he remembered the footage he recorded while fighting the corrupted werewolf earlier. A grin slowly returned to his face. If he uploaded that video now, it could explode in popularity. He imagined millions of views and piles of money while people talked about his name everywhere. With excitement returning, he began typing quickly. He planned to edit the footage and upload it to YouTube. However, he knew the editing had to be perfect. Only one person could handle it. That person was the famous editor, Romeni. She laughed at the request at first since the player was only level 15. Yet after reading further, she suddenly stood up in shock. The footage amazed her. Smiling brightly, she called the video her new muse. Later, inside a glowing city tower, another woman watched the same video. She calmly ordered someone to bring it to her. Her name was Che Seolyeon. In the Warlord world, she was known as the Thunder Queen Sire. Jae-yeon stared at his phone with disbelief while scratching his head slowly. Just one day earlier, he had uploaded a video, and now it already showed 6,000 views. He scrolled down and saw the title Warlord. Beneath it, someone praised his movements and called the fight amazing. Even after reading it again, he still could not believe the number. A slow smile appeared while he leaned back and thought about how different this felt from his past life. Back then, reaching this level of attention had taken months of effort. While he was thinking, a message suddenly popped up on his screen. It was from Romeni, asking if he had checked the view count yet. Her name appeared under the label Friend, which surprised him a little. Normally, Romeni never started conversations and always kept a mysterious distance. Jae-yeon replied that he had just seen the number himself. Romeni calmly answered that results like this were normal for her work. She added that it only happened because he gave her such great footage to edit. A sticker followed showing red roses with a message saying, "Red roses for you." Jae-yeon stared at the sticker and frowned with confusion. Under his breath, he muttered that he almost wanted to block the sender. In his mind, he still believed Romeni was a man, so the idea of flirting never crossed his thoughts. Soon another message arrived asking when the next video would be ready. Feeling drained, he threw himself onto his gaming capsule and shut his eyes while letting out a long sigh. Honestly, he had been wondering the same thing. Lying there, he admitted that he had no clue what the next video should be about. Finding another rare monster like the corrupted werewolf would not be easy. Normally, creators waited until level 50 before making videos because better content appeared later. However, he did not want to waste this sudden opportunity. With that thought, he pushed himself upright and pressed the glowing button to enter the game again. The system started up with bright, futuristic visuals. As blue energy swirled around him, he smirked confidently and shouted the word "login." Meanwhile, in another place, a blonde man wearing red armor watched the same werewolf video on his phone. He read the name Hyrkan the Haho Mask and murmured with interest. No matter how many times he watched the clip, the movements still impressed him. This man was Matador Shev, who had once helped Jae-yeon in the city. As he studied the screen, he narrowed his eyes and wondered why the player looked familiar. Just then, a woman named Yel from the Red Bulls Guild walked in and asked who he meant. Shev laughed and admitted that she had a point since he watched those videos often. Soon his expression grew serious while he continued watching. Most new players moved slowly, because the game felt real, yet Hyrkan fought with fearless confidence. Even his summoning skills looked far better than other necromancers. Shev smiled widely and imagined challenging him to a duel someday. Yel, however, looked annoyed and told him to stop daydreaming because their livestream would begin soon. When the event started, over 200,000 viewers were already watching. Shev stepped into the arena as the announcer revealed him as the Red Bulls leader ranked 9th in Warlord. Moments later, a purple dungeon gate appeared in the sky while the countdown began. At the same time, in the beginner town, Jae-yeon sat inside the Raiders Association branch looking disappointed. Every quest there felt boring and useless, so he thought he might stop making videos for now. Just then, a large, scarred man approached him and confidently said he knew Jae-yeon was the adventurer who cleared the cave of Bima Mountain Dungeon. Jae-yeon reacted with surprise when he saw the man standing in front of him. At first, he simply stared, but then he looked closer and quickly realized it was the same old man he had met earlier. It was the receptionist from the Adventurers Guild who had long gray hair and a calm face. The man politely introduced himself as Hotan and asked Jae-yeon if he could spare a little time to talk. Soon, they walked together into a quiet, private room where the conversation continued. Inside the room, Hotan stood with his back facing Jaeyeon, while keeping his hands calmly clasped behind him. In a steady voice, he explained that he had already heard many rumors about what happened at the cave of Bima Mountain. Then he stated clearly that Jaeyeon was the one who had discovered the strange mutant monster inside that cave. Hearing this made Jaeyeon blink in confusion, because he did not remember receiving any special quest about it. Still thinking about the moment, he slowly answered that he did meet a werewolf with strange glowing eyes. When Hotan heard that, he narrowed his eyes and nodded, as if his suspicion had been confirmed. Then he explained something serious. According to the information they had gathered, there was a strong chance that the monster was affected by someone called the Corrupt One. The moment Jaehyun heard that name, he quietly repeated it to himself while trying to understand its meaning. Hotan continued speaking while explaining that nobody truly knew who the Corrupt One was yet. However, the dark power connected to that figure was clearly causing monsters to become violent and dangerous, which had already harmed many people. When Hotan mentioned that the Raiders Association had even placed a bounty on the creature, Jaeyeon suddenly grabbed his hands with excitement. His eyes sparkled with energy, while he passionately declared that he wanted to help defeat the monster with everything he had. Inside his mind, he already believed this must be a hidden quest. Hotan hesitated at first, and warned that the task might be too dangerous for someone at Jaeyeon's level. However, Jaeyeon quickly insisted that he would be fine. Even when Hotan tried to refuse again, Jaeyeon interrupted once more and thanked him eagerly before he had even agreed. Seeing that determination, Hotan laughed awkwardly and finally decided to give him a chance. He told Jaehyun about a person named Ahimbri who lived at Bant's castle east of Figus Castle. According to Hotan, this person could guide him, and he would also prepare a letter of recommendation. Soon, a blue system message confirmed the quest teachings of Ahimbri, which required him to deliver the letter and meet that mysterious mentor. Excitement exploded inside Jaehyun. He rushed outside the building, raised his fists proudly, and shouted with joy, which shocked the nearby players. Some wondered if he had received an incredible reward, while others thought he looked crazy. Yet Jaeyeon simply smiled because he knew Ahimbri was famous as one of the 7 students of the legendary mage Bokon, and also known for giving rare skill books. While running through town, he felt sure this opportunity would create endless video content. Soon he stopped suddenly because he remembered something important. A little later, he reached a quiet forest clearing and used Bone Shard to summon his skeleton companion. Then he used the werewolf skull to strengthen it, which increased its toughness. After that, he equipped the necklace of the corrupted tracker and gained more power. Finally, he summoned 2 more skeletons and calmly told them they would fight together as a team.